Hi there, welcome to my channel. Thank you so much if you've been watching my Inktober journey so far. It's my very first Inktober and I love that people are actually watching it, and I love hearing your thoughts and opinions on the prompts that I'm using and what I'm creating with them. So with that, today is day 24 and the prompt is fairy. When I saw this prompt, I think this was the happiest that I've been out of all the prompts that I saw. I saw this one and was like, yes, this is right up my alley. I've never drawn a fairy before, but it was super exciting. Obviously, it was black India ink, which, kind of put a dampener on things because I would love to do it in watercolour, but honestly, this has opened up quite a lot, and I feel like if I want to do a fairy, I should just do a fairy in watercolour. I should just get on with it rather than hesitating. A little bit like mermaids. I've never done a mermaid before, and that's something that I've always wanted to do, and I think I probably will take part in Mermaid next year. So I'll have to have a look at the prompts and actually get used to drawing mermaids before I start Mermaid, because you know what, I might draw one mermaid and absolutely hate it. So the idea for this one was very literal. I wanted to do a fairy, a cute little fairy, and I decided to put the fairy under a toadstool. I quite struggled with this one. I tried to do the sketch and honestly, I just couldn't get the proportions right. It was really difficult because I had a reference photo. I had about 4 reference photos that I liked, and I wanted to sort of merge the ideas together, and the toadstool I had to just randomly put in, and I don't think the composition is great. So it's a woman sitting down, and I think the toadstool should have been bigger. I think the woman should have been smaller, but basically I drew the body first, then I drew the head. Then I really liked the head and the body wasn't big enough, so then I had to rubble out the entire body, which is the bit that I started on, and try and adapt the body to actually work. Because as I said, I was merging quite a few images together and also putting my own spin on it, and yeah, I feel like it weren't great. I feel like I should have just got someone else. I should have just made the pose myself, to be fair. But anyway, this is what I was going with. It's a woman sitting down. Quite a difficult pose, I must say, and I've got the fairy wings. They're quite intricate fairy wings. There was quite a few to choose from, and I wanted quite intricate ones rather than quite basic ones, especially because it was India ink. I did make a mistake. I did drop some. The dip pen, I do sometimes, if I'm a little bit heavy-handed, I do just drop some ink, and that's something that I've really noticed. But on this occasion, I was able to dab it, and you can see it around the eyebrow, but it kind of, I don't think it's very noticeable towards the end. So for this one, I knew that I wanted to try a slightly darker skin tone, because I've been a bit scared to do that with India ink, because I've been a bit scared of how do I retain some kind of highlights without just making it all really dark, because with the India ink, it's sort of, even if you wet the paper, it just spreads everywhere. So I was like, how am I gonna actually get some definition, because it spreads everywhere and it dries really fast. So it can be really hard to try and retain some highlights there, especially compared to like watercolour, which is what I'm used to. And I guess if I was going to do mixed media, I could do gouache or something like white gouache to try and lighten it, but that's a whole different thing. I've not even combined ink with watercolour, let alone gouache. So I just went and did all the outlines for all this. But yeah, I wanted to try a slightly darker skin tone, and I've also tried to get some features in there which were actually representative, and I found this reference photo of this girl that had 2 buns in her hair, and then she had a load of braids, and I absolutely loved that, but obviously it wasn't on the reference photo of the person that I have was sitting down, so I really had to try and merge them together, but I loved her hair. And the problem is, when I decided to do the darker skin tone and try and have some kind of contrast there, I was like, if I add any colour to the hair, I'm just gonna lose it all. Surely it's just gonna be a big old mess. So I decided to leave the hair white, and I pretty much coloured in everything else. I say coloured in, it's like painted, but I'm just very cautious because of my past ones, and reflecting back on that and what I've learned just in this month is that if I fill everything in with ink, it's just going to be a variety of grey. It's just going to be like 50 shades of grey. It's just going to be loads of shades of grey, and there's going to be no contrast. So I have to leave some areas completely white and make some areas completely black. Honestly, I do still think that there wasn't much contrast in this piece. Like, we'll see when we get to the end, you see what you think, but I struggled to get the contrast down. I tried to make the darker skin tone, but I did struggle trying to retain some kind of highlight, some differentiation between like the arms and the legs, and try to not make it one sort of big mess that just blends together. And unfortunately doing that, I don't think the skin tone was anywhere near as dark as I wanted it to be. I think I was just very cautious because I didn't have a solid reference photo that had actual points of light hitting the body. I didn't know exactly how it was going to sit. The reference photo that I was using for the girl sitting down was fully clothed and it wasn't a very well lit photo, so it was hard to sort of try and figure out where the light would be hitting and where the shadows would be, and that was kind of my mistake. But I did see this one pose and I was like, I really like it. I knew immediately. So with the toadstool, obviously it was supposed to be red, and I think in hindsight I should have done this one a lot darker. It looks very similar to the skin colour. It looks a very similar kind of grey to the rest of it, and I feel like maybe if I couldn't get the skin colour darker, maybe I should have done the toadstool a lot darker. One of the other mistakes I made was more partly with the wings and the inside of the actual mushroom. I think there's just lots of shades of grey, and I don't know, I mean there's a lot more contrast than my earlier pieces that are some darker areas. I tried to keep the wings really quite light because I knew that I wanted a white background, but then because I had a white background I felt like I couldn't leave lots of areas really light, so I decided to leave the hair light. But I coloured or like used ink in the inside of the toadstool, and that's because it was in shadow, but really the inside was supposed to be white cream, so I think I used ink for too much of the mushroom. But I do think the biggest problem was really the fact that I just couldn't get the depth and I couldn't achieve the skin tone that I wanted on this piece. I think that was my biggest issue. I think I just got a little bit scared by the ink and not knowing exactly where the light was going to hit. I think I just got a little bit scared by that, and because I couldn't get it as dark as I wanted, I decided to use ink in more places that I maybe shouldn't have. Do you see what I mean now with the inside of the mushroom? I shouldn't have done that grey. I probably should have just left it white, but yeah, I decided to just keep going, and I also added some cute little like stars on the outside, and I do think this really pulled the piece together. In general though, I am very happy with this piece. I do like it. I added some white for highlights in the centre of the eyes, but this is how this piece looks. I am still very happy with it. This is day 24, and make sure you're subscribed for tomorrow. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. I'll see you then. Bye bye.